Hello there. There we go. So many buttons to push. Hi there. Welcome. Welcome to today's Tuesday at 5 Eastern Time. So that makes it 4 Central. And I want to welcome you here. I am going to work on a project that I'm going to share with you that's in my art journal. And this particular project, well, first off, let me introduce myself if you're new. I'm Kathy Freeman with Kathy Freeman Art, and I have a art club, an art group that I teach to every single month. And it's a membership, and I come on here on Facebook and I share some of the things that I enjoy doing. And one of those things is working in my art journal. And this particular week, I have this book here, just an old book that I have been working in and adding pages, or actually just covering pages, you might say, in here. And I thought, I want to get back to using that because what I have been doing is just using a 5x7 piece of watercolor paper and then putting that together in a book itself. But it's fun to use these old books and to be able to have the book pages to use. One thing that I enjoy doing, and that many of these last few classes I've been sharing with, isn't just to share the art, it's to share also some sort of a thought or phrase that I've come across or that I've created that seems to really inspire me and helps to really bring a sense of calm and peace. And it's connected to what I have that's called the creative reminders. Thank you. Someone gave me a thumbs up. I'm going to go over here to my comments. Anne, you're here. I'm glad you're here. I see I've got some other people too. Go ahead and say hi. Anne's from Connecticut. Connecticut. Do you have, the biggest question right now is, do you have snow? Lots of people I've seen that in Colorado there's snow. I've seen different places that have had snow. And I am in Texas and happy to say I don't have snow right now. So I'm always love to hear when other people do. Anyway, it's good to have you here. The creative reminders, and I don't know if you remember those. But those are in the membership, and they have access to it. Those members, my Art Sister members, have access to that library, and it's a library that I'm going to be opening up to the public here very shortly. That people can have access to that and create their own reminders. And this particular one that I created is right here, and I want to share with you before we get started. Well, let's just get started, and we'll create the page. And then if you've got, let me know if you're doing this right along with me. If you're just watching along, that's great too. One thing is to have, what I used with this was my acrylic craft paints, and it made it very easy to use. Let me get to the other screen. Welcome. We've got Sue, you're here. I always get super tickled when I see Sue's name and that she shows up and says hello. Sue's a fun friend to talk to. So it's good to have you here, Sue. I'm glad. Thank you for showing up. All right, we're going to start this out. And as you can see right now, what I've got is I've already gessoed over the pages. And these are very thin pages. It's a book page, so it's very thin. And I wanted to make sure that it could hold some layers of paint. So I gessoed over the top of it. And I still wanted those letters and those words. I wasn't specifically caring about reading the words, but I wanted to be able to see that it was a book page. And so let's just get started here. And I've got 4 different colors of turquoise that I just happen to have on my desk. Well, 3 and then a green. And I really didn't have anything in mind, like I'm going to create, a certain topic or anything. I just started applying the paint to the paper. And that's what I want to encourage you to do, is pick yourself out 3 or 4 colors that blend really well, that you enjoy. And if you're going to follow along and do the same type of an image that I'm doing, I would suggest earth tones or things that are more close to the fall and that type of a feel. And then just lay these down, just start painting them on, mixing them a little bit, blending them. But whoops, I'm a little carried away there. That paint just took off by itself. Just paint that on, and really, when you're doing it, just relax and have fun just laying that paint down. Yes, I got a little bit. I need to wipe that off a little bit. Sometimes when I start projects like this, and I don't have a specific end result in my mind, it can be a little unnerving for me, to be truthful. There's that little bit of anxiety that's like, what am I going to create? What am I going to do? And if I'll stop that thinking and just pick a few colors out and start putting them down in a very abstract way, and telling myself I am just creating the background right now. I'm just focusing on creating a background. Then I'll usually settle down and start enjoying what I'm doing. Um, I don't know. Do you find that that's the same way for you yourself? Do you get a little bit that anxiety, anticipation of, oh, I got to know what I'm doing. I need to know exactly what I'm going to be making here. Or is that just me? I don't think it's just me. I think many artists have that. Maybe not all, but many do. And that lack of knowing what we're doing, I think, can really be a stopper. It can kind of keep us from picking up our paints and our brushes and going to town with them, because it's like, well, I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing with this. And then we put it off and wait until we think we know what it is. But I figure if nothing else, I'm going to have some pretty colors down on this page. Anne says, no snow, gorgeous fall day. When do you start getting snow there? I always think, in my mind, Connecticut, I think up northeast, I think snow early, but when do you start getting it? And Sue tells us she's busy watching and knitting. Sue is a wonderful, does things with her knitting and sewing and that, crocheting. Wonderful projects. Now, one thing I'm kind of thinking to myself is I do know that I will be putting down the phrase that I came across, I found in the creative reminders. So I knew that I would be putting that down. And at first I was thinking, well, I'm going to leave this white area, the gessoed area, so I can write it. But then thank heavens for white jelly rolls, pens, white pens. Or I could have just put some more gesso back down and wrote it right over that, but it took that thought away. Sue tells us that it's 61 degrees today where she's at, and she usually gets her first snow in October, but not this year. No, that's interesting. And Anne, January for real snow and cold. We hope for snow before Christmas, though. Yeah, we usually we don't really get a lot of snow, but we do get cold, and it's not till January, February. Now comes the fun part. We're just going to blend back and forth, layering the colors on top of each other. Hi, Marion. It's good to, I think, if I'm right, I think Marion's from Texas. So I think if I remember that right, I'm glad you're here. We're doing a little talking about where we're from and what the weather's like. for a minute here. All right, now that might look like just a mess to you. But remember, it's a background. And I'm going for the dark colors because I know that when I use the white or white paint on top or anything white, it's going to really stand out. That contrast between the two really makes it pop. Yes, it's a mess and gorgeous colors. Thanks, Sue. It is a mess, isn't it? Marion said she's been doing yard work. I think she's some cool. It is that time when we want to get out and do a little yard work, isn't it? I don't know, not me, but many do. I always admire the beautiful yards that people create. Now, what I'm going to work on now is I thought to myself, this particular saying that I came across that I found is talking all about a new day and starting that day and really having a joyful presence. And I like, there's just something about like a little wishing well. And I thought, wouldn't it be fun to create a little wishing well? And I have not used my modeling paste in quite a while. And so I'm going to use a little modeling paste when I do that. Hi, Yvonne. We've got Yvonne Franks here. You're from Oregon. Thanks for coming in. It's windy and a brisk day here, waiting for rain. I bet you get a lot of rain up there. We had a really big storm go through yesterday here. Okay, I pulled out my modeling paste. Now, what you see me using here is a plastic knife. I will be 100% truthful with you. It is not the easiest to use, but if you do not have a palette knife or something else to use, it works okay. All right. And so I just had it on my desk. It was close by. And a lot of times when I'm doing things for myself, if it's just, and I don't mean to say just, but if it goes in my journals and that, I'm not super particular on my tools to making sure that they're all just like when I'm teaching. I want to make sure I'm using the tools that people, that we should be using, but I'll usually grab what I have handy. All right. And let's see, to get nervous about what to make, because I always follow you. Thanks, Anne. That's sweet. I don't know how you think of your pieces. I'm still loving the tissue paper and background of pumpkins. I love that tissue paper too. That was really a lot of fun. Well, I'll do that again probably here in the next week or so. We'll do some more tissue paper in one of these. I leave the leaves, Sue is saying, I leave the leaves to shelter insects and pollinators over the winter. And I put in a northern red oak. Oh, 2 spice bushes and a hemlock, the start of my native plant yard. Sue is fantastic. Sue, do you have a title? I know you work in a, please post here. It's an arboretum. Is it? I'm not sure. Tell me again where. But she gives tours. And one time we talked about all the wonderful insects and different things, and just fun to talk. I love how much she loves nature and the things that she taught me. All right, so I'm going back and forth. Now, as you're using this knife, I was getting some ribbing, some kind of rough edging. And so I've used the other side to kind of smooth it out and play with it. I'm going to, I think what I will use also is this modeling paste to create the rocks and that on the ground, that texture that it creates and how it gives a little bit of lift off the page, makes it three-dimensional. I love that effect. I love that effect where it just sort of pops off the page a little bit and it makes you really want to reach in and touch it. All right. Sue says here, thanks for answering me. I work at Fern, it's in little letters here, Botanical Gardens and Nature Preserve. She wears 3 hats: visitor service, education, and naturalist. That's right. I knew it was a nature preserve, but it's so fun, all the plants and that and what she shares. Now, as you're doing this, I wasn't following any pattern or anything. I was just thinking about the stones that go around an old fashioned wishing well and how they place those on top of each other, and they usually would stagger them back and forth. What I'm taking right now is this is actually a very loose it's the DecoArt medium. It's the fluid acrylics. And this is actually the transparent red iron oxide. And as you put it down, it's got a real distinct orange color, you might say, rusty color to it. You could pick any color here. It's just one I had, and I wanted to find a brown, something with a brown, because I knew that I would be creating the rocks and that are going around it. But a gray would be really nice. Welcome. We have more. I'm so glad you're popping on. I'm glad you're here. Share this with us. Go ahead. If you haven't put your name in, say hello. Give us a shout where you're from so we have an idea. It's great to have you. Got some black on my palette there, and I'm just going to place that in the center. And then add some in between each of these carved out stones. Give it some shadowing. This is the part that I love to just sit and play with and put layer on top of layer on top of layer. So you could, if you're working on the project, you could finish yours, very quickly. And if you're like me, you just have to play with it and gone ahead and I'm using the modeling paste again. If you do not have modeling paste, you could easily use gesso right here. The only difference, of course, is it's not going to have that. Modeling paste will stand up off the page just a little bit. And so it'll raise itself up. And this is a kind of an avocado apple green. Same color, that I was using on the background. And so I'll use the same colors throughout it to create that feeling of continuity, and like everything just sort of blends well with each other. And that's one tip too. If you, when you're mixing colors and you're creating another colors, to use the colors, the previous colors you had, if they'll, obviously if they'll make the color you're wanting. But that new color will just feel like it belongs because it has some of all the colors that are there in it. Sue asked me a question. When and why do you use the fluid acrylics versus the regular acrylics? Um, Yvonne says you make it look so easy. Good. That's what it's supposed to be easy. I want you to, and it is. It is. I think the hardest part is just when you look at it. A lot of times I'll look at something and in your mind it's a little different than what's coming out on the page. So if we just let go of that image in our mind and keep the general idea, keep that general idea, but let it formulate, let it start to, I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but just, I don't know, it just starts to appear on the page as you just let it go and not try to make it everything so perfect. For example, the rocks, I would probably, and Sue, I'll get right back to your answer, your question here in a minute, but the rocks, those don't, that's not really how rocks are formed or whatever, but it gives the impression of it. And that's just fine. So you start using your paints and maybe some of your acrylic pencils or things to create shadows and start forming the shape of it. And that shape gives it away. So I use the fluid mediums just because I don't have a lot of them. And it's something we could do a little more research in because I don't have a extensive experience with it, but I've got a few colors and I like it because it flows very easily. That's why I use it. Usually to get my acrylics. Now, if you're talking about like a craft paint, that will flow. But this even flows, and I'm talking about when I say flow, you just you can take it and turn the page a little bit on its side and it will roll down. It'll start to kind of drip itself down. And that's what I had in mind in my mind when I was starting to create this. I was thinking, ooh, I just put this on here, just lift it up a little bit. I didn't do that, but I could lift it up and it could just drip itself down. And so that's really with the fluid acrylics. They do flow very easily, and you'd have to water down your others. Are they better? I could not answer that. We could look into that. Maybe one of you that have used a lot of these, hi Joanne, could answer that. But to be truthful, and I don't say this with any, I don't mean to be negative, but every company has to come out with a new product or something because to continue the sales and et cetera. And so I think it's just another product, but I know it has a good purpose. I'm not that versed in them because I don't use them a lot. I do have a red that's really pretty. It's beautiful. It's a real rich red. And then I have these iron oxides. Good to have you here, Joanne. All right. So I went back on the rocks, my so-called rocks, and I put on there some the green on top of that because in my mind I'm thinking moss, and I love that look of that mysterious little fairy garden look. This is the color that I used here is my, let me find it here. This is yellow ochre, and it is a heavy body paint. And I mixed it with a little white to lighten it up. And I'm placing it in just a few areas. I did one side here, you saw. And I chose this because I felt like the color would lend itself, it would work well. It's typically, to me, a fallish color, a golden kind of color. And I was thinking about light and putting something in there that just lightened it up a little bit. And if I put something on one page, I will typically always go over to the other page so that it flows. I never just put usually one thing on one side and not bring some part of it, no matter how small, onto the next, because I like it to flow back and forth. And I want your eye to Now, what I've got here, and these are really neat. If you haven't tried these, this is actually charcoal. And back in the day, charcoal was so messy. You know, you'd pick it up, your charcoal sticks, and it'd be all over your fingers. It would be everywhere, right? But this has some kind of it's like a charcoal pencil. Have to make sure that it's really dried well, or when you put it down on top of the surface, you start lifting up the paint. So that's why I came back in with my dryer. But this charcoal has, where you're holding it, it's almost like a plastic or something around it. So it doesn't leave any kind of mess. I love using it. And it's great for sketching things out. You can do it lightly and just kind of sketch around, draw around, and then come back in and really, put some pressure on it and create those dark areas that make that wonderful contrast. So right now I'm just kind of sketching around. And these are just 3, almost like an upside down teardrop. I don't have a specific flower in mind. It's just a shape. You could use a marker for this. I tend to stay away from things like Sharpies and that. They have their place, but for me, I like the variation of like pencils and the charcoals and that. Usually when a marker is used, you get the same intensity throughout the whole thing. And so, and when you're doing this, just kind of sketch it out. Don't worry about if you're, I'll come back in and I'm planning on putting inside here some gesso that I've got here on my palette, but you could also use white acrylic paint, and you can cover up, especially with the gesso, you can cover up any areas that maybe you didn't like how that worked out. So you need to come back in and make it a little bit different. Hello, we got a few more joined us. Thank you for coming. Just say hi. Tell me where you're from. We've got Got, I know Texas is, we've got all over the United States here. Not every state, but we've got from the east to the west, up north, down south, a little bit in the middle there. It's just fun to see. That's the one thing I love about being able to do things online is this connection we have to connect with each other and to where I would never meet um, from all these locations if it wasn't for this. This is so awesome. Now, as I'm drawing this, I'm thinking in my mind of one, I want to leave some space up there at the top so I can write out my creative reminder statement, my quote that I've created. And I'm also thinking about progression and that flow of the flowers. I want them to really vary. I don't want them all to be the same height, but I also want it to kind of notice how it goes up and then you notice it'll come back down. But then on the side over here, I chose to go tall with this because it'll, in my mind, it stops the eye and brings you back in. We tend to, when we're reading, we usually look from left to right. It's just how how we're trained and how we look in that. And so that's why I started low on the left and moved up and then came back down. Just brought, and you'll see this a lot more, it'll be clearer as we start adding the gesso and creating the white petals. But it brings you back down to the wishing well. And then with these flowers, I'm raising you back up and kind of bringing a stopping point. And the way that is curving over to the left, just slightly, brings you back into the page. So think about that when you're creating. If that's not something that you normally think about that flow and a person's eye. Don't overthink it. Don't make it so that it becomes a chore, but just something to think a little bit about, and that is that flow, that movement of getting people to look across your page. And this is gesso that I have. I'm just going to paint it in. And I'm not going right up to the edge because I want the line to show up and I still want some of the background to show up in between. So I'm going to get more of the center, but still not go right up to the edge on most all of these. And I started out with a round tip, a medium round tip, but I've now moved to an angle brush, a smaller angle brush, and it's easier, especially since I'm coming down towards a point. It makes it so much easier to just put that on my brush, and then with this just an easy slight pull down, it comes down. And now I kind of move back and forth between these two brushes. Oh, Joanne, I'm glad your husband's doing better. Any type of surgery, anything that we have to deal with that's medical is always very stressful. Just a small little angle brush here to create these. And I'm also going to vary the thickness of the gesso. I'm going to, on some of these, I want it to be thick. And others, I'm going to, that first layer you put down, and you know how it's a little bit translucent when you lay it down. I'm going to leave it that way. Because there again, we're creating variety. That's one of the elements of design. These are like little buds. And I don't know about you, but when I'm just sitting here doing something like this, and just makes me want to take a deep breath, and it's so relaxing to me. Joanne's asking me the size of the book. I really didn't give a size. This is just an old book from a library that was, throwing it away. And I have turned it into an art journal, and I've used it over the last 3 years here and there, but it would be close to a 5x7, just a little bit smaller. Let's see. Don't have a ruler on here, but yeah, about a 5x7 when it's closed. Put in the comment where you're watching this from. Are you watching it from my website page, the community center? I just thought I'm going to start putting these in there so that it's easy. I know my members, I've had them tell me that the little art village is so much easier to find things in. And I thought I'm going to use this community center. So are you watching it from there, or are you on Facebook watching it on my business page? I also have it in going into YouTube right now, but I'm not watching comments or that. So I'll go back to the YouTube afterwards, and if there's some comments in that from someone watching there, then I will respond to those. Trans from Facebook, and I bet most of this is probably from Facebook. Sue's on Facebook too. I know you can make a comment, fill in the chat and that on the other page. Now I'm just coming in. Let's just throw in a few little buds here and there. And that's mostly to fill up some space. And just because I love that contrast of the white against the dark. This replay will be in the community center. So if you want to go back, and if you're watching and maybe you want to go back and follow along and create this again or something, I've got a section in there. If you just scroll down on that page, it says replays from Facebook Lives. Click here. Excuse me. And you can open that up, and that's where I'm posting these replays. This is the acrylic pencils. I really love using these. And you're watching for the community center. That's wonderful. Facebook went off, stopped working. That's why I started putting it in other places. I had received notice, I think it was last week or something, that Facebook was giving some problems here and there. It seems like there's always an issue. It's a wonderful thing to use because it does go out to so many places, but it's not reliable. So you can always find this. I'll post it in the community center. How do you get to the community? Where is that, Kathy? What is that? Right now, I'm just trying to form out the shapes of these rocks using my acrylic pencil. And I'm using in here, this is a bit of a gray brown, almost, well, not brown, it's more of a gray black charcoal color. And the nice thing about that is it's super soft. And so you can use your finger or something and blend those out and mesh those together. And now picked up one of my lighter greens just to play with it a little bit. Anyway, to get to the community center, you go to www.myartsisters.com and it takes you to our little art village. Look on that map of the art village and you'll see a building that's called Community Center. And I just happen to have that area all decorated for Christmas right now. So every once in a while, I'll take a minute and try to change up a little bit. But the community center, you'll open that up, and there's several things you can find there. These Facebook Lives are one of them. And then up at the top is a greenhouse, and that's where I house the creative reminders and the music and that I offer to the group. If you haven't been listening to that and you want something to listen to, if you're a member, you can go back up there. Sometimes we forget what's going there, but those creative reminders are up there. I've also have a link to a page where when I write a new creative reminder for myself, I find one in the library that I want to use, then I'm going to post that up there so you can see it. So you don't have to be a member to be able to see that page. You'll see the link, and I'll do that for a little while. I tend to kind of change out doing things, a little variety and spice in life, right? But what I'm writing today, you can find on that page. So to repeat what I was just telling you, the greenhouse at the top, that's called Grow Joy, because you have to work at that, grow that joy. You click on that page and there is a button that says, I can't remember what it says. I think it says Kathy's, or what I've chosen for my creative reminder today, something like that. It's not hard to find. It's a little button you'll see right there underneath the button that's for the members library. If you click on that, then it'll open up the page and I'll have on there the one that I'm actually using. And that way, if you find any part of this phrase or anything that I'm using, you'll be able to see it and you can write it down on your paper. I'm coming back in with that charcoal again now and adding another layer over to darken. And I keep my lines very sketchy. I'm going to pull out my jelly roll. Now I use a number 10 size. We'll start writing this out. This was one I chose for the week as I was looking at it. And basically what I'm writing down is it says, "Thank you, God, for a new day, and bless me to start this day with sunshine in my heart. Where I may have concerns or worries, I ask you to give me insight and inspire me on the positive action I can take. Please fill me with peace, calmness, and reassurance that I may go about my day with a joyful presence." And when I found that one in the library, and that library is always kind of growing, I go in there and I change things a little bit and add to it. But I just thought about that, and I thought about right now, people are in need of, I don't know if that's the right word. I don't know if that's the word to use, need, but I know they appreciate. And isn't this the month of gratitude, right? That we really focus in on that, even though we focus on it all year long, but we do tend to really emphasize it right now this month. But people appreciate being around somebody, being in the presence of somebody that is joyful. And joyful doesn't necessarily mean that you're happy and laughing. And I mean, you are happy, but you're laughing and the world is all great and everything's going perfect. Because that's not my life. But amongst all of the different challenges in that, I tend to try to look for something that's joyful in it, something that, and if I can't seem to see anything, or if I'm having a struggle, it's definitely one of my prayers as I ask God to help me to see something, bring it to my mind, help me to see it in a different light than how I am seeing it. And to be able to, when I'm around people, to bring that joy feeling, that calmness, and to that he's filling me with to them, kind of like an instrument in his hands. I don't know if you're religious or not. You don't have to, you could just put in different statements that speak to you. But I tend to take these statements and then I'll go to my scriptures and look up in there and find different scriptures of why it's important, why it would be important. And that's how I use my creative reminders. Joni, you're here. Well, I'm glad you're here. And this will be in the community center. You can see the replays of it. I'm glad you joined us, though. When you're writing something like this, you just don't know if you're going to run out of space as you're going along. So you have to kind of stop and evaluate, how much more space do I have? How much do I have to fill this in? Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you for that compliment. You never know, do you? When you start out. Usually, if we will just keep working and be patient with something, it Usually always does. I mean, there's times when things don't turn out so well, but that's okay. You just use it for something else. Rip it up, paint over it, gesso over it, doesn't matter. But if you'll just work with it, but usually every piece of art has that stage in it where you're just not sure how it's going to turn out. I know I was working on this a Santa Claus for next month for the art group, and I'll tell you, there were moments in there that I was thinking, "Oh my goodness, I don't know if this is gonna turn out. I don't know if this is gonna be a project we're gonna get to do this next month." But I just persevered and kept going. And so, Sue, you'll see that. I'm actually gonna launch that this week so that you guys can start on it ahead of time and use it. So if you want to decorate your house or give it as a present for people to decorate their home, then they can get it and use it the month of December. But that definitely was a project that, I had to, and sometimes you have to step away from something, don't you, too? You ever found that you're working on something, and if you'll just leave it alone, step away, and then come back to it, those fresh new eyes just make it so much better when you're working with it. New ideas come. Loretta, you're here. I didn't say hello to you. I'm so sorry. I'm glad you're here, though. All right, there we are. We are complete with this project. And that's our page. Doesn't it have just kind of that peaceful feel to it? I just loved creating this. What colors would you use? What colors would you use differently? Let's just take 2 minutes here. And if you're still here in that voice, what 3 colors would you use in your project? I'd love to hear. It is. Thank you. Yes, Joni. That just feels calming to me. And I think it's that, well, number one, you use the colors that are calming. Anytime we use our blues, our greens, those are cool colors. They're calming colors. Brought in a little bit of the gold and yellow just to add little sparkle to it and to liven it up just a little bit. But I kept him that a muted color. I didn't bring it in as a bright yellow, as an orange or anything like that. I kept it as a yellowish kind of gold so that it would lend itself to that fall feeling, that calming feeling. And then you've got the white that comes, that works as a contrast against it. Sue says that since it's been so cloudy there, she might use blue, yellow, and orange to make it bright. Yes. Yes, that would be really nice. That would be really nice. And I'll remember to put a post. I think what I'll do is I'll put a post on my page, my Facebook page there, and then you could post underneath that. I think it allows you to do that. Go ahead and share when you do this. Find the picture of this, the post, and share yours. I would love to just see it and be with it. All right. Thank you all for showing up today. This is so fun to be with you and to be able to talk with you and hear what it's like, what's going on in your part of the world. And I'll put that in Facebook, put a little post there, and I will see you again next week, y'all. It's good to have you here. Take care for this Tuesday evening. Enjoy your week.